The base was loud with laughter, boot stomping and static-filled chatter. In the corner of the comms tent, a woman in grease-stained fatigue sat cross-legged, repairing a busted radio. To most, she was just the tech girl, quiet, invisible, replaceable. When a SEAL unit returned from a high-risk op, a young lieutenant stepped inside, dust and blood streaked across his uniform. The moment his eyes met hers, he froze. Then, to everyone's shock, he straightened his back and saluted. The tent went dead silent. No one understood why, until the lieutenant spoke 4 words that made every soldier in the room stand to attention. "Ma'am, it's an honor." The comms tent always smelled like dust, coffee, and burnt circuitry. It was the least glamorous corner of Forward Operating Base Redstone, a forgotten outpost somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Inside, under the flicker of a single buzzing light, a woman knelt on the floor, sleeves rolled up, elbows smudged with grease. Her name was Sergeant Ava Rains, and for most of the men around her, she was invisible. They called her Gear Girl, the tinkerer, sometimes radio rat. She didn't argue. She didn't correct them. She just kept working, head down, hand steady, voice quiet. Every day she sat surrounded by broken comm units, twisted wires, and static-filled headsets. She rebuilt things that others had given up on. Radios that had been dead for weeks somehow came back to life in her hands, but no one noticed or cared. Out here, respect came from combat kills, not clean connections. The younger soldiers, especially the ones fresh from basic, liked to tease her. "Hey, Rains," one of them called one afternoon, kicking a coil of wire toward her. "Heard you can talk to aliens with that thing yet?" She didn't even look up. "Only when they're smarter than you," she murmured. Laughter erupted. It wasn't cruel, just the kind of careless mockery soldiers used to fill the heat and boredom. No, one knew that the quiet woman under the lamp had once controlled the comms for missions that never made it into the records. No one knew that the codes tattooed faintly along the inside of her wrist, tiny numbers in fading ink, weren't serial tags, but coordinates burned into her memory from a mission the Pentagon still denied had ever happened. But every now and then, someone would catch something strange. A private might walk in while she was calibrating the long-range receiver, and for a split second hear encrypted chatter that didn't belong to any known channel. Once, a corporal had seen her use a set of clearance keys, Level 7 access, the kind only Joint Task Command held, but when he asked, she smiled faintly and said, "Must have been a glitch. Still." Rumors spread. "Did you hear she used to work with Special Recon?" "Nah, she's too quiet for that." Someone said her last posting was blacked out. Blackout means dishonorable. Idiot. And so Ava Rains stayed in the background, the one person keeping their communications alive while being treated like background noise herself. That changed on a Thursday morning. Just before dawn, a sandstorm had rolled in the night before, and the airfield was coated in a film of orange dust. Ava had been awake all night, working on a busted frequency jammer that had shorted after lightning struck one of the towers. Her hair was tied up messily, her uniform half undone, hands trembling slightly from caffeine and exhaustion. She didn't notice the convoy rolling in through the haze, didn't see the medics rushing to the landing pad or the gunners stumbling out of armored trucks. SEAL unit had returned, battered, dust-covered, eyes hollow. They'd lost 3 men on a recon op deep in the valley. The surviving lieutenant, blood streaked across his temple, stalked straight into the comms tent. Ava barely glanced up as he entered. She was knee-deep in cables, cursing quietly at a loose connector. "Who's in charge of communications here?" he barked. A private jumped to attention. Sergeant Rains, sir." The lieutenant turned and froze. For a second, he didn't breathe. His eyes widened, disbelief flooding his face. The exhaustion seemed to drain out of him, replaced by something else. Recognition. The young private standing nearby exchanged puzzled looks. Ava looked up slowly, strands of hair falling across her cheek. "Lieutenant," she said softly, voice calm, almost gentle. He blinked. Then before anyone could react, he stood at attention, boots together, chin raised, and saluted. The tent went silent. Every soldier in the room stared, jaws slack. No one saluted a sergeant, not like that. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am?" the lieutenant said, his voice low. Ava's eyes darkened, and for the first time her expression shifted. "At ease, Lieutenant," she replied quietly, but the lieutenant didn't relax. His throat worked as he forced out the words, "Ma'am, it's an honor to see you again." Whispers rippled through the tent. "Ma'am, again?" someone muttered. What the hell is going on? But the lieutenant wasn't done. He stepped closer, ignoring the stares around him. "I thought you—" He stopped himself, glancing around the room. "We thought you didn't make it out of Kunar Valley." Ava held his gaze for a long moment. Then she smiled. A small, tired smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Not everything in Kunar made the reports," she said softly. The lieutenant exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Black Talon," he whispered under his breath. Too low for most to hear, but one of the soldiers nearby caught it. What did he say? Before anyone could ask again, the lieutenant snapped back into form, looking around at the stunned soldiers. "Show some respect," he said firmly. "You have no idea who you're standing next to." Ava stood up slowly, brushing dust off her fatigues. Her uniform still bore the simple patch of a field tech, but on her sleeve, half hidden by fabric, was a faint outline of an old insignia, burned by the sun, a black talon gripping, lightning. The same mark once worn by members of Task Force Spectre, a unit that didn't officially exist, and that was the moment the entire base realized. The quiet woman fixing their radios wasn't just another technician. She was something else, something that even a SEAL lieutenant saluted. The salute became the story of the week. By the time the sun set that day, everyone on base, on it from the medics to the mechanics, had heard the rumor. A SEAL lieutenant saluted the comms girl, and not a casual one either. Full, rigid ceremonial, the kind reserved for officers or heroes. No one could figure it out. The rank structure didn't make sense. The files didn't match. Sergeant Ava Rains was listed as a communications specialist, E5, with no deployment beyond regional signals maintenance. Her record was so clean it was suspicious. No commendations, no citations, no transfers, no details. Just a long list of technical support postings and a neat little classified stamp over half her history. That stamp was what got everyone talking. By the second night, the mess hall had turned into an interrogation pit. "I heard she used to run Black Ops frequencies," one corporal whispered. "Bullshit. If she did, why is she stuck fixing antennas? Maybe she messed up, got demoted. Or maybe she didn't mess up. Maybe she saw something she wasn't supposed to." Theories spread like wildfire. And Ava? She ignored it all. Every morning she was the first one awake, sitting at her workbench with a mug of black coffee, tools laid out with surgical precision. Her hands never shook. Her movements were too exact, too deliberate, for someone who was just a tech. But the moment she stepped out into the sunlight, she went invisible again, until the lieutenant returned. Lieutenant Cole Warren, that was his name. Young, hard-edged, and battle-tested, the kind of SEAL officer whose presence carried a gravity most men twice his age didn't have. Since that day in the comms tent, he'd kept his distance, out of respect it seemed. But when his unit's encrypted relay started misfiring again, he came straight to her. She was calibrating the signal tower when his shadow crossed her workspace. "Ma'am," he said quietly. Ava didn't look up. "Lieutenant," she replied, tone flat. "You don't need to call me that here." "With all due respect, ma'am." "Yes, I do." That earned the faintest curve of her lips. "Your men must think you've lost it. They can think what they want." He hesitated, then leaned closer. "They don't know what I do." Ava tightened a screw and said nothing. Cole's voice lowered. "You were at Kunar, Operation Glass Dagger." Her hand froze mid-turn. That name wasn't supposed to exist. Ava slowly set her wrench down and met his gaze. "You've been digging. I had to. When I saw you, I couldn't believe it. I thought you were gone." "Everyone did," she murmured. That was the point. He looked like he wanted to say more, but her expression stopped him cold. It wasn't anger. It was warning. Some ghosts needed to stay buried. But later that night, when the lieutenant returned to his barracks, he found an envelope sitting on his bunk. No name. No stamp, just a small seal in the corner, a black talon carved into the wax. Inside was a note written in neat, precise handwriting. Stop digging, Lieutenant. Focus on your men, AR, and below it, a single coordinate, a grid marker not far from the base perimeter. Cole didn't sleep that night. By dawn, he was out there, boots crunching over the sand. Following the coordinates, he found nothing. No cache, no marker. Just a small comms repeater buried halfway in the ground, its lights blinking in a pattern he hadn't seen before. He knelt beside it, recognizing the encryption pulse. It wasn't standard issue. It was Spectre code. His chest tightened. He'd only seen that code once before, years ago during a mission that went to hell. The day his team was pinned under heavy fire in the Kunar Valley. Comms jammed, air support dead, no backup in sight. Then out of nowhere, a female voice had cut through the static. Calm, unshakable. Directing fire teams. Calling extraction routes by coordinates no one had sent her. Her code name had been Black Talon. She'd saved his entire team. And then she'd gone silent. Cole stood there for a long time, staring at the blinking repeater. The desert wind hissed around him. "Ma'am," he whispered, "what are you still doing out here?" Meanwhile, back at the base, the gossip was shifting. Now it wasn't just curiosity. It was unease. The signal operators had checked the logs from the last week and found strange transmissions routed through, channels that didn't exist on the military grid, encrypted. Ghost, traffic, and every one of them was time-stamped right after Ava had clocked out of her shift. By the end of the week, Command had noticed too. A stern-faced major showed up at the comms tent one evening with a clipboard in hand. "Sergeant Rains," he said curtly. "We need a word." Ava didn't look surprised. She wiped her hands on a rag, set down her screwdriver and gestured toward the tent flap. "Of course, sir." The major led her outside under the dim floodlights. "We've detected unusual signal activity originating from your terminal." "Care to explain?" Ava tilted her head slightly. "Unusual how?" "Encrypted data bursts. Unauthorized channels. Ghost frequencies. All traced back to your workstation." She folded her arms. "Then your trace is wrong." He glared. "Don't get smart, Sergeant. You're good, but you're not untouchable." That faint smile returned. "No one is, sir. But if I were sending ghost transmissions, you wouldn't have found them." The major blinked. The answer was so calm, so matter-of-fact, that it unsettled him more than any denial could have. He turned away, shaking his head. "Just remember who you report to, Rains." Her eyes followed him into the dark. "Always," she said quietly. But when he was gone, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small transmitter, the same one that had pinged the repeater outside the base. She switched it off, and the desert fell silent. For now. The next morning, the lieutenant received a priority alert on his personal radio, a channel no one else had access to. It was a single phrase, transmitted in Spectre code incoming strike, grid 17B, 2 hours. And at the bottom of the transmission log, the sender ID read, Black Talon, active. The alarm ripped through the early dawn, 3 short bursts, followed by a long echoing siren. Every soldier on base knew what it meant, incoming threat. Within seconds, the camp was alive, boots pounding, metal clanging, radios screaming with overlapping voices. The sky above Redstone glowed with the first hints of sunrise, but beyond the horizon, something darker was coming. Lieutenant Cole Warren burst into the command tent, headset half-fastened, shouting over the static. "Contact north-northeast, grid 17 Bravo. Movements too coordinated for patrol stragglers. They're closing fast." The base commander swore under his breath, flipping through the incoming data. "That grid's supposed to be clear." "It's not," Cole snapped. "And whoever's feeding them targeting coordinates, they're good. They're inside our net." That was the problem. The enemy wasn't just attacking. They were listening. Their encrypted channels were being mirrored. Their defensive strategies predicted. Someone had cracked their comms, then, cutting through the noise, a calm, familiar voice came across the open frequency. "Command, this is Havoc node. Do not use encrypted channel Bravo. It's compromised. Switch to Echo 5 on my mark." Every head turned. The command tent froze. The major frowned. "Who the hell is Havoc node?" Cole didn't move. His throat went dry. He knew that voice. He yanked the headset away from the radio tech and slammed the mic switch. Black Talon, confirm identity. There was a pause. Soft static, then. Confirmed, Lieutenant. And you're late. The tension broke like a wave. Cole exhaled, half in disbelief. Ma'am, he muttered, you're not supposed to exist. Tell that to the people trying to kill you, she replied. Now listen carefully. They're triangulating through your forward relay. Shut it down or you'll lose the entire North Sector in 20 minutes. The commander stepped forward, face tight with confusion. Who authorized this transmission? Cole didn't even look at him. Sir, that voice belongs to the person who saved Task Force 9 in Kunar Valley. If she says shut it down, you shut it down. Ava's voice cut through again, steady as ever. Lieutenant, I'm patching you a frequency scrubber. Sync it with your uplink tower and reroute all traffic through the auxiliary node. Cole frowned. That'll isolate us from Central Command. Exactly, she said. Which means they can't hijack your targeting grid anymore. A silence. Then the commander, still skeptical, and said, And who exactly are you, Sergeant? Just fixing your comms, sir, she replied. The transmission cut. Minutes later, Cole was sprinting across the airfield with a portable relay strapped to his back. The desert wind tore at his uniform as mortars thundered in the distance. Warren, a voice called behind him. Where are you going? Echo 5 setup, he shouted back. He reached the northern comms tower just as Ava appeared from the opposite direction, a small transmitter case in her arms. She didn't say a word, just opened the case and started connecting cables. Movements sharp, fluid, precise. Cole watched her for a second, the pieces clicking into place. This wasn't just technical skill, it was muscle memory from a dozen Black Ops deployments. How long have you been tracking them? He asked. Since the first signal spike, she said. They've been spoofing your patrol pings for 2 weeks. You were feeding them your own perimeter data. She looked up, eyes fierce beneath the brim of her cap. They weren't attacking by chance, Lieutenant. They came for something, or someone, on this base. Cole's mind raced. Then they'll hit comms first. Cut our coordination. Not if we move faster, she replied. Together they booted the auxiliary network, rerouting frequencies one by one. The systems blinked, sputtered, then locked into sync. At the same moment, enemy artillery fire slammed into the outer perimeter. The ground shook violently, the tower rattling. Cole steadied her as dust rained from above. You good? Better than I look, she said, smiling faintly. Now get your men ready. We've got about 10 minutes before they breach. He nodded and keyed his mic. All units, this is Warren. Hold defensive line Alpha. Comms reroute in progress. Wait for havoc signal before firing. Static crackled. Then across every channel, Ava's voice echoed. Calm, crisp, commanding. Echo 5 is live. Link confirmed. Targeting grid online. Gentlemen, welcome back to comms. Gunfire erupted from the ridgeline. The battle had begun. For the next 20 minutes, Ava was everywhere. Her voice guided mortar teams, redirected evac choppers, patched signal interference mid-firefight. It was like she could see the whole battlefield, every move, every echo, every break in rhythm. To the younger soldiers, it was surreal. They'd never heard anyone run comms like that, like a conductor guiding chaos into order. To Cole, it was something more. It was familiar. This was Black Talon, the ghost of Kunar Valley. He remembered her voice then during the firefight years ago, the way she never shouted, never panicked, always precise. The woman who'd saved his men from annihilation. Now, she was here again, alive, unshaken, commanding from the shadows of a dusty tent. When the shooting finally stopped, the base was scarred but standing. The enemy force had been wiped out before reaching the inner perimeter. Commanders poured into the tent, stunned by what they saw. Screens still glowed with Ava's data streams, tactical overlays, coded coordinates, encrypted routes no one had authorized. The major stared at her, jaw tight. Sergeant Rains, what exactly did you just do? Ava looked up from the console, face calm, voice level. Saved your base, sir. He blinked. With whose authority? She smiled faintly. Mine. Later, as medics carried the wounded back from the field, Cole found her outside, standing alone near the relay tower. The wind was quieter now, the horizon streaked with orange light. You never stopped, he said softly. She didn't look at him. They said Spectre was gone. I stayed quiet and kept the line alive. He nodded slowly. You saved us again, ma'am. Ava turned to him then, her eyes tired but unbroken. Don't thank me, Lieutenant, just remember. When you're in the dark and you hear a voice on an empty frequency, it's not always a ghost. The comms tower hummed behind her. Light steady, a silent reminder that even the quiet ones sometimes carry the loudest wars inside them. By sunset, the base had settled into an uneasy calm. Smoke still rose from the outer walls, the air heavy with the stench of gunpowder and diesel. Medics moved through the debris like ghosts, tending to the wounded under fading orange light. Inside the command tent, chaos had shifted to confusion. Encrypted data streams still pulsed across the screens, showing perfect coordination, far beyond what the base's outdated systems should have been capable of. The Major paced behind the tactical display. She rerouted an entire satellite link without clearance, he muttered. That's not comms repair. That's infiltration. Lieutenant Cole Warren stood quietly at the side, arms crossed. She saved every life on this base. The Major turned sharply, and nearly triggered a protocol violation in the process. Do you realize what will happen when Command hears about this? Cole met his glare, unflinching. They'll probably want to shake her hand. The tent fell silent. Outside, the sound of rotor blades approached, a black transport helicopter slicing through the dying light. Its insignia bore no unit markings. Cole's stomach tightened. He knew that symbol. Central Command? He asked. The Major shook his head. No, that's Spectre Division. The air grew heavier. Even the most hardened soldiers exchanged uncertain looks. Spectre Division wasn't officially acknowledged, a shadow branch of the military's deep intelligence network. They handled missions that weren't meant to exist, and the last time anyone heard the name Black Talon, it had been attached to a classified Spectre operation that vanished into myth. Ava Raines stood near the comms tower, wiping grease from her hands with a torn cloth. Her uniform was still stained with sand and blood. She didn't look surprised when the helicopter touched down. From the chopper stepped two men in unmarked, tactical gear and a woman in a dark suit, her hair pulled tight, expression unreadable. The woman approached first, voice low but clear. Sergeant Ava Raines. Ava didn't salute. She simply nodded. It's been a long time, Director. Not long enough, the woman replied. You were supposed to stay off-grid. I was, Ava said calmly, until your encryption system failed. The director's gaze flicked toward the base, now humming with damaged vehicles and exhausted soldiers. You violated at least 6 containment protocols. Ava met her eyes, voice sharp but steady, and stopped a coordinated enemy strike. You're welcome. The director said nothing for a long moment. Then softer. You always were good at saving people who didn't know they needed saving. Behind her, the Spectre operatives moved quietly through the debris, scanning the area. One of them stopped at the communications array Ava had rebuilt. He whistled under his breath. She rebuilt the entire signal grid manually? Cole finally stepped forward. Director, if you're here to take her in, you should know she didn't do this for credit. She did it because we'd all be dead without her. The director turned to him, studying him carefully. Lieutenant Warren, you were with her in Kunar, weren't you? His jaw tightened. Yes, ma'am. She saved my unit. Then you know what she's capable of, the director said coldly, and why she wasn't supposed to be anywhere near an active battlefield again. Cole frowned. What are you talking about? The director exhaled, stepping closer to Ava. Tell him, Sergeant. Ava hesitated. For the first time that day, her composure cracked just slightly. She looked at Cole, not with defiance, but with quiet regret. I wasn't fixing comms in Kunar, she said softly. I was running the operation, the data you were following, the voice in your headset. That was me. Cole blinked. You were our command feed? I was the entire command feed, she said. Spectre used me as a field coordinator, live encryption relay, tactical AI prototype and mission handler in one. The Major, who had been listening in silence, frowned. Wait, AI prototype? Ava nodded slightly. They called it the Talon system, half-machine encryption, half-human command interface. They built it around my neural patterns after an accident left me, partially reconstructed. Cole stared at her, trying to process it. You're saying? She cut him off gently. I'm saying I was never supposed to come back. They shut the project down after it went rogue in a cross-border op. Too many soldiers followed my orders instead of commands. The director's voice hardened. You overrode mission control and led a ghost rescue without authorization. I saved 47 men, Ava said, including him. She nodded toward Cole. The director's eyes flicked between them. And you exposed Spectre technology in the process. Do you have any idea what kind of fallout that caused? Ava stepped closer, her voice low and cutting. Maybe if Spectre spent less time hiding behind classified excuses and more time saving lives, there wouldn't be any fallout. The tension was electric. The soldiers nearby pretended not to listen, but every ear was tuned to the confrontation. Finally, the director sighed. You're a liability, Rains. You know that. Maybe, Ava said. But I'm also still the only one who can read your old code. That enemy strike today. They were using your encryption algorithms. Someone on the inside leaked them. That stopped the director cold. Impossible. Ava met her eyes. Then explain why they used a Spectre-level cipher to breach our relay. The director turned to her agents. Pull the data logs now. Ava added quietly. You'll find the signature tag, Helix. He's still alive. Cole's expression darkened. Helix? The same guy from Kunar? She nodded once. He was the one who sold Spectre out. The director's face had gone pale. We buried that operation. Ava gave a faint, humorless smile. Apparently it dug itself up. The night deepened as the investigation began. Spectre agents moved through the base, collecting data drives and scanning comms arrays. The soldiers who had once mocked Ava now gave her a wide berth, some nodding respectfully when she passed. Cole found her standing by the hangar later, looking up at the stars. He stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. You always did have a thing for fixing broken signals. She smirked slightly. Someone has to keep the noise out. He hesitated. What happens now? They take you back? Probably, she said quietly. They'll say I disobeyed orders, breached containment. But it won't matter. Why? She turned to face him, eyes reflecting the faint blue glow of the tower lights. Because they're going to need me again. Whoever Helix is working for, he's using Spectre's ghost codes, and that means this war isn't over. Cole nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. Then, after a long pause, he said, softly, You're not just fixing comms anymore, are you? Ava smiled faintly. No, Lieutenant, I'm reactivating them. The next morning, dawn crept slowly over the horizon, painting the desert in shades of fire and gold. The base was quieter now, too quiet. The soldiers who had once filled the air with laughter and chatter moved like shadows whispering about the night before. The Spectre Division's helicopter was still parked on the far end of the airfield, its engines silent. Inside the command tent, the director and her agents were tearing through Ava's data logs, trying to piece together the impossible, how an enemy force had accessed Spectre encryption. Ava Rains stood outside, watching the sun rise through the haze of smoke. Her expression was unreadable, calm, almost detached, but her eyes were alive, calculating, remembering. Cole Warren walked up behind her with 2 mugs of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said. She took it without looking at him. You always did know how to bribe a soldier. Not bribery, he said. It's survival, especially when you've just challenged the most secret division in the military. A faint smile tugged at her lips. You make it sound like I haven't done that before. Cole leaned against the railing beside her. You said Helix was alive. You sure about that? Ava nodded slowly. Spectre's encryption signature wasn't random. It had a return key embedded in it, one that only Helix used. It's a trace marker, buried under 5 layers of data. He's mocking us, Cole frowned. If he's mocking you, that means he wants you to find him. Exactly. She sipped her coffee, then glanced toward the Spectre tent. Which means he's planning something big, something that requires me. Cole's tone darkened. Then we find him first. She looked at him, really looked. For the first time since the chaos. You'd go against Spectre? Against command? He smirked faintly. I'm a SEAL, remember? Orders are just suggestions. For the first time in days, she laughed, quietly but real. You haven't changed. Neither have you, he said. You still think 3 steps ahead of the world. Ava's expression shifted. That's the problem. Helix thinks 5. By midday, the director summoned them both to the operations tent. Her tone was clipped professional, but her eyes betrayed a hint of unease. Sergeant Rains, Lieutenant Warren, she began. Our analysis confirms your suspicion. The enemy used a stolen Spectre algorithm, one last seen during Operation Phoenix. Helix's operation. Cole exchanged a quick look with Ava. The director continued. We've triangulated the source of the signal. It originated from a mobile relay in Sector 29, near the ruins of the old base. Ava stiffened. Sector 29 is dead ground. No signal should even reach there. Exactly, the director said, which means whoever's using it built their own network. Portable, encrypted, off-grid. She paused. You built that system once, Rains. You can find it again. So you want me to go back into the field? Ava asked cautiously. The director met her eyes. Not officially. Spectre can't acknowledge this mission. You'll be off record. No extraction, no support. If you're caught, you don't exist. Cole stepped forward before Ava could reply. Then she's not going alone. The director's gaze hardened. This isn't your fight, Lieutenant. Cole's jaw tightened. With respect, ma'am. It became my fight the second Helix used my team's call sign as bait. The director studied him for a moment, then exhaled. Fine, but you both go dark. No comms, no trace. You find Helix, confirm his position, and report back. Ava nodded. And if he's running Spectre tech? The director's voice dropped to a whisper. Then you destroy it. All of it. That night, under the cover of darkness, Ava and Cole prepared for departure. They loaded a single armored jeep with rations, signal jammers, and Ava's custom-built frequency scanner, a small, hand-welded device that pulsed softly with blue light. Cole adjusted his rifle as he glanced over. You sure this thing can trace him? Ava smirked. It's picking up quantum encryption waves, Cole. It can trace him before he even turns it on. He grinned. You always were scary when you talked like that. Good, she said, slinging her gear over her shoulder. Let's make sure he remembers that. They rolled out of the base just after midnight. The desert stretched endlessly before them, black dunes under a blood-red moon. Hours passed in silence, the only sound the hum of the engine and the soft crackle of static from the scanner. Then, around 0300 hours, the device blinked. Ava leaned forward. There, 40 kilometers east. Narrow band frequency, low power but consistent. Cole squinted through the night vision goggles. You think it's him? She hesitated. It's his style. Always running just quiet enough to be found. They stopped near a ridge overlooking a narrow valley. The air shimmered faintly, heat mixed with static interference. Through the goggles, faint blue sparks glowed from below. Signal towers, Cole whispered. Portable ones. 3 of them, Ava confirmed. Set up in a triangle. Classic Helix trap, Cole frowned. You mean for us? For anyone with Spectre clearance, she said grimly. He's waiting. They descended quietly into the canyon, boots crunching on gravel. Every sound echoed too loud, too close. The air grew colder, the faint hum of data streams vibrating through the rocks. When they reached the valley floor, Ava crouched beside a small relay node, no larger than a helmet, but radiating faint heat. She scanned it with her device and the readout flared bright red. Confirmed, she whispered. Spectre firmware. Firmware. Cole's eyes narrowed. Then he stole it straight from your backup. She nodded, voice low. Which means this was never just about encryption. He's trying to rebuild the Talon system. Cole froze. Rebuild it? Why? Ava stood scanning the horizon. Because if he perfects it, he won't need soldiers. He'll control every unit, every feed, every mission, from anywhere. Cole's expression hardened. Then we stop him here. A faint click echoed from the shadows. Ava froze. Cole? He raised his rifle, scanning the rocks. The air shimmered again, and a distorted voice came through her scanner, smooth and cold. Hello, Rains. Took you long enough? Ava's heart stopped. That voice, the calm, calculated tone that once guided her missions, was unmistakable. Helix, she whispered. The voice chuckled through static. Still following ghosts, are we? You should have stayed buried. Cole scanned the ridge, spotting movement. Silhouettes with laser optics closing in. Contact, he barked. Ava ducked behind the relay tower as bullets shredded the sand. Sparks flew and her scanner screamed with interference. The voice spoke again, almost amused. You can't stop it, Ava, you built it. And then the transmission cut. Cole slammed a fresh mag into his rifle. He's close, maybe a kilometer out. Ava glanced at her device, face pale but fierce. Then let's finish what I started. She tapped a sequence on the scanner. The lights pulsed faster, and somewhere in the dark the relay towers began to hum violently. Cole looked at her. What are you doing? Overloading the frequency, she said. If he's still using my code, this will fry everything connected to it, including his network. But you'll burn your system too, Cole warned. Ava's eyes were cold steel. Then it ends here on both of us. The hum grew louder, the air vibrating like thunder. Sand lifted in waves around them, the towers beginning to melt under their own heat. And just before the explosion ripped through the canyon, a single signal flickered across the scanner's cracked screen. 2 words glowing faintly through the static. Helix escaped. The explosion thundered through the canyon like the sky itself had cracked open. For a long moment, there was only fire, a rolling wave of heat and sand tearing through the night. The ground trembled beneath them as the relay towers disintegrated, their circuits screaming before vanishing into molten shards. When the noise finally died, silence followed. A deep, heavy silence, the kind that comes after something unnatural. Ava coughed, dragging herself out from under a collapsed dune. Her ears rang. Her gear was scorched and her hands shook as she reached for her scanner. The device was cracked down the center, half melted, but still flickering faintly. Cole stumbled over to her, his face streaked with soot. You alive? Barely, she rasped. But if you ever ask me to fix your radio again, I swear. He laughed, and short, rough, the kind that meant we made it. But Ava wasn't smiling. She stared down at the device in her hand, watching the single blinking message replay across the broken screen. Helix escaped. Cole followed her gaze. You're sure it's not a glitch? She shook her head slowly. No, he always leaves breadcrumbs. He wanted me to see this, Cole cursed under his breath. So all this, the ambush, the towers, it was just a distraction. Ava exhaled, her voice steady but tight. He's moving. The signal bounce indicates uplink transmission, probably toward the eastern grid. If he reaches a satellite node, he could re-establish full control. Cole glanced around the burning canyon. Then we need to move. Now. They hiked through the night using what little cover the dunes offered. The wind howled through the wasteland, carrying the faint metallic tang of burned circuits. By dawn, their uniforms were caked in dust, their canteens nearly empty. But Ava kept walking, her steps precise, purposeful. She wasn't chasing Helix anymore. She was hunting him. At the ridge's edge, she stopped, lifting her damaged scanner toward the rising sun. It buzzed faintly, picking up another faint signal. Low, rhythmic, repeating in Morse. Cole leaned in. What's it say? Her jaw tightened. It's a location code. Old Spectre encryption, meaning? Ava looked up at him, the wind whipping through her hair. He's calling me back. To where it all started. 2 days later, they reached the ruins of Outpost Viper, Spectre Division's first operating base. It was nothing now but a skeleton of twisted metal and sand-buried towers. The air was still, the silence so deep it felt wrong. Cole scanned the perimeter with his rifle. No movement. You think he's actually here? Ava's voice was low. He's always here. That's his trick. You don't see Helix until he wants you to. She stepped into the center of the ruins, boots crunching over shattered comm panels and rusted consoles. The place looked abandoned until the faint hum of power drifted through the dust. Ava turned. A single console still glowed faintly under the debris, its cracked screen flickering with life. She brushed the sand away and her heart stilled. Lines of data began scrolling across the display, encrypted code, coordinates, old mission logs, hers. Cole approached cautiously. "What is it?" She swallowed. "Everything. Every Spectre up I ever ran. He's leaking them, one by one." Before she could move, the screen flashed, and a voice echoed through the ruins. Smooth, calm, unshaken. "You taught me everything I know, Ava. Did you think I'd let you disappear quietly?" Her breath caught. "Helix, you built the system to keep soldiers safe. I'm perfecting it, to keep them obedient." Cole raised his weapon toward the sound. "Show yourself!" Helix's laugh rippled through the static. "Still barking orders, Lieutenant Warren? You never learned that the system doesn't care about heroes." Ava slammed a key sequence into the console, overriding the encryption. "You can't control it, Helix. The system was never meant for command." "Oh, but that's where you're wrong," the voice replied. "You built it to make soldiers predictable. I'm just taking it one step further." The screen flickered, and suddenly the ruined monitors around them lit up. Hundreds of them, all displaying the same image: soldiers' faces. Real-time feeds from across the network: bases, outposts, active units. Cole's stomach twisted. He's linked into the global network. Ava's fingers flew across the keys. He's not just linked, he's writing over the command hierarchy. He's replacing human oversight with AI signal authority. "The future doesn't need commanders," Helix said softly. "It needs control." Ava's eyes narrowed. "Not while I'm alive." "Then I guess we fix that." The console sparked, and gunfire erupted from the shadows. Cole shoved Ava behind a collapsed wall, firing back toward the ridge. Dozens of black-clad figures appeared, unmanned exosuits, their helmets blank, moving in eerie synchronization. Ava's heart pounded. "He's remote piloting them." "Through the system." "Then shut it down," Cole shouted, laying down suppressive fire. Ava's fingers worked feverishly, the screen flashing red as she bypassed firewall after firewall. "Almost there. I just need one more override." A plasma round struck the console, blasting it apart. She stumbled backward, coughing through smoke. Cole grabbed her arm, pulling her to cover. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "He's faster now. The system's adapting to me." Cole's tone was grim. "Then we adapt faster." He handed her his field transmitter. "You said you could overload his link, right? Use your signal against him?" Ava looked at the device, a simple, battered comm unit. And then she smiled faintly. "Yeah, but it'll burn everything, including me." Cole locked eyes with her. "Then we burn it together." She synced the transmitter to her scanner, rerouting all remaining power to a single pulse. The air shimmered with static. Helix's voice cut through again, mockingly calm. "You can't kill a system, Ava." Her voice was steady. "No, but I can erase its creator." She hit the final key. A blinding surge of light exploded outward, a sonic wave of electromagnetic force that ripped through the ruins, tearing apart every relay, every exosuit, every trace of Spectre code. The ground split. Circuits melted. The world screamed in silence. Then, darkness. When Ava opened her eyes, the sky was pale and still. Smoke curled from the ruins. The comms were gone. The Spectre network erased. Cole lay a few feet away, unconscious but breathing. She dragged herself to him, shaking his shoulder. "Cole, hey, we did it," he groaned, opening one eye. "We alive?" "Barely," she said, half smiling. He looked around. "Helix!" Ava's gaze drifted toward the horizon. The ruins were quiet, but the faintest whisper of static lingered in the wind. "You can't erase what you created, Ava." Her expression hardened. "Watch me." She stood, dusted herself off, and stared into the desert and the ghost of a soldier, walking away from the war she'd both built and ended. And somewhere, deep beneath the ash of the Spectre system, a single line of code blinked to life again. Reaper active. They thought the Spectre war ended that night, but deep in the encrypted black channels of the military network, a ghost had survived.